Welcome to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. You know, apparently it takes 1.39 liters of water to make a liter of water. That's right. The liter of water that you purchase down there at the shop, it requires 1.39 liters of water in the whole process of getting the water, manufacturing the water, distributing the water, consuming the water to get that 1 liter of water. It's called the economics of suicide. Yes, humans are frickin' stupid. But even that's not as idiotic as when we try to create 1 unit of GDP growth. Get this. Since the collapse of Lehman Brothers, some estimate that it has taken $18 of debt to create $1 of GDP growth. It's called stall speed. Mayday, 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 the sucker's going down. Stacey?
Max, the first article here that we're going to discuss shows you in chart form this stall speed of which you speak. Paul Brodsky, the Fed is holding a burning match. The burning match can be seen in these two charts. First up, the orange line there is total U.S. credit. Since 1983, you could see that it's divorced from the blue line, which is nominal GDP, and the gray line at the bottom is base money supply. So either one of those two has to increase, either the nominal GDP or the base money supply, in order to collateralize that orange line of debt going up. The second is total U.S. credit to U.S. nominal GDP, and that puts all those charts for the first one into one chart, and you can see the stall speed. So we've hit a point where no debt is not creating anything.
Yeah, this is really the amazing charts here that clearly demonstrate this economic problem, is that no matter how much largesse is given to these banks in the form of free money from the central banks, they are unable to lend it out into the economy in sufficient quantities to generate any GDP growth. And that number's always been a bit skewed since the world went off a gold standard and onto a fiat currency standard since 1971. But going back to 1971, so you needed at that time about $1 to $2 of debt to create $1 of GDP growth. Then right before the crisis of 2008, it required $7 of debt to create $1 of GDP growth. Then the reaction to the crisis in 2008 was to flood the world with debt, and they flooded the world with $18 worth of debt for $1 of GDP growth, which is to say that they don't get any GDP growth at all, really, but they just keep flooding the system with debt, and that debt is suppressing GDP growth. The money creation, as I've said on this show many times before, the money printing is creating a net effect of deflation. That's what GDP collapse is all about. Sure, some prices are going up, but not as fast as the implosion of the banks, the shadow banks, the zombie banks are causing this stall speed, as you point out, stall speed, and when they hit stall speed, you're up there at 30,000 feet or what have you, and then boom, it's down to gravity, takes effect.
What do you do when you hit stall speed if you're the head of an empire or the head of the Central Bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve Bank? What do? Well, if you can't grow the economy, on principle, they're against that anyway, right? They're against people having any sort of wealth of their own. So they've got to steal it, don't they? Because the fundamental disconnect today is unnatural clearing levels, prices of goods, services, and assets that do not reflect society's sustainable needs, wants, and preferences. So over time, the natural cycle of an economy is that prices will decline. But in a finance-based economy, central banks and heads of state don't like that. They want always inflation. So you see global monetary authorities have sought price stability, which in practice implies the need for constant price inflation to offset what would otherwise be naturally occurring price deflation. Indeed, price stability has become a bipartisan, socially acceptable euphemism for consistent policy-administered credit and price inflation, functionally the diminution of a currency's purchasing power. And they provide a chart for this. This is CPI from 1910 to the present. And as you can see, it's been declining and down 59%, Max, since 1983.
Right. We bring up a couple of different things there. Deflation in this context is debt deflation. The idea that the government can print money to create inflation is an attempt to try to inflate debt away. That's their intention. But that's not happening. In fact, it's exacerbating the debt accumulation. The more money they print, they're not getting the inflation that they hoped they would get that would diminish the debt. Actually, they're increasing the debt load. The debt load is going higher, both in nominal and in real terms, because GDP